learned that the Premier participated in a teleconference with the other Atlantic Canadian Premiers yesterday in the lead-up to his upcoming meetings with the Prime Minister next week and with the other Canadian Premiers. Yesterday's announcement that all 4 Atlantic Premiers are united in calling for a demographic adjustment to the Canada Health Transfer is important and certainly deserving of national media attention, and I hope the government's communications wizards are hard at work to ensure that happens. We can achieve much by presenting a common front to the Prime Minister and to the Canadian Premiers, as I have said repeatedly. Can the Premier tell the House the specifics of what he will propose to the Prime Minister for a demographic adjustment to the Canada Health Transfer?
The Honourable the Premier.
Thank you for the question. And Mr. Speaker, the purpose of looking at health transfer is basically we look at New Brunswick as kind of ahead of the curve in terms of the demographic adjustment required. So every province is going to experience what we're experiencing maybe more acutely right now. The idea that we're all challenged for employees. I mean, every province is doing that. I find it, you started from Ontario, how many people they're looking for. The difficulty is that we don't have enough people here. We don't have enough people to send across the country, like has happened in the past. So the purpose here is basically identifying New Brunswick, as you could almost say, as a prototype here in our nation. We have and in our discussions with my other Atlantic premiers, that was the very point, that Atlantic Canada is facing this like no other. New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland's in a similar state that we are. And the idea is that we need a solution here that will be national, but right now it is regional, and it's in Atlantic Canada. So our purpose is to present our situation as unique, but it's what's coming to everyone else. Let's develop a solution for New Brunswick and have federal support to do so.
The member for Fredericton South and leader of his party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe that all parties in this House support demographic adjustment to the Canada Health Transfer, in which the Premier well in his discussions. And all parties should be concerned with Alberta Premier Kenney's crusade to change equalization, which I expect Premier Kenney will be bringing to the meeting of Canadian Premiers. These issues speak to New Brunswick's place in Confederation, Mr. Speaker, since equalization does, and the Canadian Health Transfer should, if the Premier is successful, help address fiscal disparities among provinces in this country. So my question is a simple one, Mr. Speaker. Will the Premier commit to briefing all party leaders in this House on the results of his meetings with the Prime Minister and with the Premiers from across this country upon his return?
The Honourable the Premier.
Absolutely. I think it's important. It's been interesting. I think the decorum in today's QP has, for the most part, been very cordial. I think the discussions about what's real. I think what's happened to the member opposite is certainly to take a position and to come in the House and basically indicate, what went in the case with their personal life and with their partner in an investment that didn't go quite as planned. We count on people like that, with that entrepreneurial spirit, to invest in New Brunswick and to make it work. And we know it's a risk, and in this case, it's a personal risk. But many, many people are doing that very thing in a personal risk style. But looking at the province and saying, we have the same situation as a province. We've talked a lot today about more creating new positions. Mr. Speaker, it's about how do we find ways to do things with what we have, because not unlike any business, it's how do we make it work. So in a short response, which I could have stopped early, yes, indeed, we'll respond in relation to what we've learned, where our focus points have been, and what the outcome is of the meetings I'm going to have next week.